Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Iqaluit. I'm happy to take your questions now. Je suis très content d'être ici à Iqaluit. Je suis heureux de prendre vos questions.
Looks a little high.
Yes, you can rotate it down.
Jane George from Nunavut News. Some people were saying that the apology for the management of the tuberculosis epidemic was not enough. It comes too late and it doesn't give enough tangible commitments. What's your response to that?
I think people need to understand across the country how important this was because of the way Canada dealt with the tuberculosis crisis in the north as a government. It set in a mistrust of government, a mistrust of healthcare that has real-world implications for communities across the north now. We are pleased that we've moved forward on this historic apology in partnership and at the pace of the local Indigenous leadership. We've worked with them very, very closely to make sure that Inuit were at the heart of this and telling us exactly what was needed. Of course, we need to, as we said, continue to be investing in anti-poverty strategies, in housing, in health, in education, in a broad range of things in addition to delivering medicines. But these are the things that we are committing today to do. A big part of moving forward is recognizing mistakes of the past, and that was what today was all about.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Nick Murray. I'm with CBC North. My friend over at News North was kind enough to give her question to me, since it's a question that serves our northern audience here. Mr. Prime Minister, you talked about the funding agreements that the federal government has given. Among that is $240 million over 10 years to address housing, specifically in Nunavut. But officials with the Nunavut Housing Corporation have been on record saying that the money at that pace, it would take 60 years to address the housing needs in Nunavut right now, not even factoring in any needs in the future. Why hasn't the government done more to help the housing crisis in Nunavut, considering how housing is such a driving factor behind tuberculosis and so many other social issues across the territory?
We know that housing, not just in the north, but right across the country, is a huge priority for all Canadians, and that's why we move forward with a national housing strategy, which for the first time in decades has the federal government re-engaging significantly on the housing file. Specifically for the north, as you mentioned, we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars, but we recognize there is always more to do. There are tremendous needs that have built up over years and even decades, and that is something that we are committed to responding to in partnership with governments and leadership in the north. That is something that matters to us, and that is why we are recommitted today to investing in the kinds of infrastructure, including and especially housing, that is going to make a huge difference in the lives of people and their communities.
Onali aluki mua periguar tara tam na hibulek ti tamani heo katawlek ma Prime Minister kanok li apere himalek pero kanuilang na pihilu tam na bidyo tigilugo for aluki.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Aluki, would you like to answer that?
Kanoy lisakpi apere kanilaw kay Jordan.
Tam na hibulek ti tamani heo ma pubalong niya mo mamayagak to kemasuni Inuit hibulek ti kano apere himalek pa Inuit bidyo tigilugi.
Dan o kasama pilir katigig simasuya kata Inuit no nanganinga simadluta tisamadluta. Aviktok simayun pilir katigig simayugon isumagildutigo take ko kinakatakton ilaming ne isumagilo ngwaslutigo sakatitina kauman. Karisaw yakutigo kinaktaw katagun naktunin. Tana ikayong nakang naktok uvagud litamani Nunavut iluani narunar simayugo makong ni kanayaktini Joanna si akumaring amadanes korlorto Nunavut tungavikun okaraviw yung nakatang naktun kinaktunon take ko iler simanikun utingin naksimayuk nin kinarun nakluting. Tana ro kauso kauyong apekutaw kauyong iglukik sang Tana pimmareo yung narunangiman, kuvyagil na kasatara aperiyaw kaungman, isumagildigo, tana ayaw tuingin nakatigo, kaw yung madlutaro at tuwa na kalaring mapuvagilong namon. Tana Aqiga kanreakang nato iglukik sang na amanakikik sang na. Takwa piluang waslo ti ayaw tuwingan ng natavon. Kau yung matukisi yung makataw ti takwak lo taro. Ang katigik si madlo taro kau yung madlo taro. Kanod darit aqiga ng mga tan na mana pang nagasurik tigo. Mati yung nungwani piyarik si manakwak lo taro pang nautimin. Kuyan namin.
Hi, Ken Driscoll, APTN National News. Prime Minister, in your comments yesterday morning to the press in Ottawa, you said that there had been eroding trust in between Mr. Butts and Ms. Wilson-Raybould. Now, in the last couple of months here in Canada, we've had RCMP removing Indigenous protesters from their own land. Nathan Obed behind you called the Indigenous Language Act, his words, colonial, and you lost your most prominent Indigenous cabinet member. Is there a similar erosion of trust going on right now between you and Indigenous voters?
I am incredibly pleased to be here today to be part of a moment in which we are recognizing and turning the page on a terrible colonial part of Canada's past. How the government treated Inuit around the tuberculosis epidemic was part and symptomatic and emblematic of the colonial mindset and the broken relationship between Canada and Indigenous peoples right across this country. That is why over the past 3 years as a government we have stepped forward significantly and meaningfully in partnership with Indigenous peoples across this country to address many of the outstanding issues, from boil water advisories to opening new schools, to investing in healthcare and health centers, to moving forward, as you mentioned, on historic Indigenous language protection legislation that empowers Indigenous peoples to protect and shape the future of their languages, and move forward on historic recognition that the child and family services systems across this country take far too many Indigenous children out from their families, out from their communities, out from their culture and their identities. These are things that we have moved forward on significantly and tangibly in addressing. We recognize, of course, that there is always much more to do. What took generations and even centuries to break as a relationship will take more than just a few years to fix. But we know that we have set real foundations of trust, of partnership, of cooperation as we move forward with Indigenous peoples on a true path of reconciliation that is important not just to this government, not just to Indigenous peoples, but to all Canadians, including non-Indigenous Canadians.
Hi, Sarah Frizzell from CBC North. We're hearing from Dene, who received much the similar treatment for tuberculosis. They're wondering why they were not included in today's apology, along with other indigenous groups from Manitoba who say that they were experimented on during tuberculosis treatment.
I am very pleased to be here today with Inuit community, with Inuit leaders, to talk about what happened in this situation. What happened here in the north was very traumatic to generations of people around, to families, to communities, and today we are here to address that. I very much look forward to sitting down with leadership and community members from Indigenous communities across this country to talk about issues that they have and their priorities for moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation. Today was a big step on reconciliation for the Inuit in terms of the Crown-Inuit relationship. But as I've said many times, there are many more things to do in many different parts of the country, and I look forward to moving forward in partnership and respect.
Radio-Canada, Monsieur Trudeau, d'abord, quel est votre souhait à vous? Êtes-vous toujours en faveur d'une entente de réparation pour SNC-Lavalin, comme vous le souhaitiez l'automne dernier? Une réponse dans les deux langues serait appréciée. Merci.
Moi, mon souhait, c'est toujours de protéger et de créer encore plus de bons emplois à travers le pays. C'est toujours une priorité pour ce gouvernement et on va toujours chercher à s'assurer qu'on est en train de créer de la croissance économique qui aide la classe moyenne, qui crée des bons emplois pour les Canadiens, qui protège les bons emplois pour les Canadiens. Et c'est quelque chose que ce gouvernement fait depuis les tout débuts et c'est quelque chose sur lequel on peut démontrer énormément de réussite. On a créé presque 900 000 bons emplois au Canada depuis 3 ans et demi. On a le plus bas taux de chômage depuis 40 ans et on va continuer de travailler fort pour s'assurer qu'on a des bons emplois à travers le pays, qu'on les protège, qu'on en crée. Par rapport à Lavalin de façon spécifique, comme je dis depuis le tout début, cet enjeu est une décision pour le procureur général à prendre une décision. As I said from the very beginning, I understand that one of the fundamental responsibilities of the Canadian government, particularly of this government, is to create and protect good jobs right across the country. And that's exactly what we've always done. We have, over the past 3.5 years, seen record low unemployment in this country. We've seen created by Canadians close to 900,000 new jobs, most of them full-time. These are the kinds of things that a government is always going to focus on and going to look to do even more and even better on. However, in the specific case of a DPA and Lavalin, as I've said from the very beginning, that is a decision for the Attorney General to make alone.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. It's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National. Today, the Federal Court of Canada denied a request by SNC to review a prosecutor's decision declining a settlement against the company, and this will pave the way for a very lengthy court trial. What do you think of this decision? Will you ask Mr. Lametti to review it in any way, and do you still think that a DPA is perhaps the way that you should be going to help out the company?
As I've said from the very beginning, our government will always look to try and protect jobs, to create good jobs, to create a growing economy that works for the middle class. But in the specific question of a DPA, that is the Attorney General's decision to make. That is what I have been consistent on for many months, and the Attorney General will make that decision. Okay. Nous savons qu'en tant que gouvernement, nous allons toujours défendre les bons emplois. Nous allons toujours chercher à promouvoir plus de bons emplois à travers le pays. Mais par rapport à la décision sur une entente de rémédiation, ça, c'est une décision qui devra être prise et qui doit être prise par le procureur général, pas le premier ministre.
Prime Minister Michael Couture from Global National. Yesterday in your press conference, you admitted there was an erosion of confidence between your office and Jody-Wilson Raybould. So I wanted to ask you, why aren't you apologizing to her for that?
I think in any situation, we always need to look back and look at what we can learn, and certainly how that erosion of trust happened between the Attorney General and my Principal Secretary in my office, without me being fully aware of it, is certainly something that I regret and will endeavor to improve on in the future. I think we always need to learn from challenging situations, and that's why I've committed to bring in folks to help advise my office on procedures around judicial affairs, but also more generally in regards to how we relate to cabinet, how we work together as a caucus, how my office functions. I think that's something that Canadians expect. But as I've said from the very beginning, we had conversations about a difficult situation in a way that Canadians would expect us to. When we're looking at potential job losses right across the country, from Corner Brook to Port Elgin, Ontario, to Saskatoon and Regina, to Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie, Alberta, and Fort McMurray, we are seeing good jobs right across the country that could be at risk, and is incumbent upon any government to take very seriously as an issue, which is something that we absolutely did. Nous savons qu'il y a toujours des réflexions à avoir après une situation qu'on trouve difficile comme celle-ci, et sur ce désaccord interne qu'on a vécu. Je regrette que ça s'est passé, évidemment, et je me suis engagé à apprendre et à demander de l'avis, oui, sur le contexte judiciaire, mais aussi sur comment mon bureau s'assure qu'on est en train de bien fonctionner avec les membres du caucus, avec le Conseil des ministres. Il y a toujours des choses à apprendre. Mais en même temps, je vais rappeler aux gens que nous allions toujours défendre des bons emplois. Et c'est pas juste des bons emplois dans une région. On parle de Corner Brook, Newfoundland, à Port Elgin, en Ontario, de Saskatoon, de Regina, de Calgary, d'Edmonton, de Fort McMurray, de Grand Prairie, Alberta. Il y a des gens à travers le pays qui pourraient être touchés par cet enjeu et nous allons toujours considérer le bien des travailleurs canadiens et les bons emplois qui y sont associés.
Prime Minister Terry Penwell with the Canadian Press. I'm just wondering, have you reached out personally to and spoken directly with Jody-Wilson, Raybould, and or Jane Philpott since they left cabinet? And if not, why not? And also, given everything that's gone on, do you think it's appropriate that they run under the Liberal banner in the next federal election?
I think, quite frankly, that's a question for them. They have, both Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Dr. Philpott have indicated that they intend to continue to remain members of the Liberal Party, and certainly they have indicated that they still share the values and objectives of this government when it comes to economic growth, when it comes to reconciliation, when it comes to the environment, and a broad range of things. But obviously, there are going to be reflections and discussions. But I will remind people that we are a party that values diversity of opinions and perspectives. We recognize that Canadians hold a wide range of perspectives and beliefs right across the country, and priorities and issues and desire for solutions. And a government and a party that reflects a broad range of perspectives is better able to serve as a strong team Canadians who have questions and interest in how we're building a better future. As for direct conversations, I haven't spoken with either of them in a while, but I look forward to in the future.
Why not?
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you. Je vais certainement dire que c'est une... nous avons une équipe qui reflète bien des différentes perspectives et c'est une des forces du Parti libéral. Mais je sais que n'importe qui continue d'être membre du Parti libéral du Canada, comme l'ont indiqué la Dr Philpott et Mme Wilson-Raybould, partagent nos priorités par rapport à la croissance économique, par rapport à la réconciliation, par rapport à l'environnement et partagent énormément les valeurs que nous avons en tant que parti. Évidemment, il y a des conversations et des réflexions à avoir avec eux, mais c'est quelque chose que nous allons continuer d'avoir. Nathan?
I think something that the media should reflect on is that throughout all of this, there have always been more important stories than the stories of human rights abuses to Inuit. Every time there is something that happens, such as an apology today, there are other stories in the world. But the fact that media pass right by the people whose human rights abuses were not told by the media for decades to other stories of the day is still a reflection on the work that needs to happen on reconciliation. The Inuit who apologized today matter. This story matters. It is a Canadian story. And I recognize that there are other media stories that matter as well, but I do hope in the future there can be more respect given to the place and time and the people who deserve to have their story told, and the media that have a strong role to play to tell it. Nakumik.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much for coming here to Iqaluit. I know it was a long trip, but you guys got 2 days of experiencing the extraordinary hospitality of the Inuit. Thank you very much for being here. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.